The school day is filled with the usual noise of students chatting about their lives. Amidst this typical high school atmosphere, Takuya sits quietly. He is a first-year student who identifies as an otaku, but he admits to himself that he is not the standard type. While most people in his position might like mainstream anime, Takuya is deeply and secretly obsessed with a show intended for young girls called Glitterymon Pets, or Glittermon for short. He feels a surge of quiet excitement because he finally obtained an exclusive, limited edition Glitterman eraser. He reflects on the nature of the show, noting that while it airs on Sunday mornings for children, it is famous among older fans for having an incredibly dark and deep story hidden behind its cute characters. He knows that some people even joke that it belongs in a late-night adult time slot because the plot can be so grim. Although the current season is not as popular with the general public, Takuya firmly believes it is the best work the series has produced so far. His quiet moment of pride is interrupted when Kotoko suddenly leans over and tells him she is borrowing his eraser. Takuya panics, trying to stop her, but Kotoko doesn't understand why he is making such a big deal out of a simple piece of stationery. He tries to explain that the eraser is very special to him. Kotoko looks at the character on the eraser and assumes it is a famous Pakamon. Takuya nervously corrects her, stating that it is actually from Glittermon. Kotoko admits she has never heard of it and asks if it is even popular, since it looks the same as other cartoons to her. Takuya watches her, thinking about how Kotoko is a typical airhead gal whom he usually finds difficult to handle. She is always seen with her friend Amane, a tall, cool girl who looks like a professional model. Takuya feels a sense of dread because he believes that girls like them are never kind to people like him. Kotoko shows the eraser to Amane, calling it a Pokachu, but Takuya can't help himself and corrects her again. He explains that the character is Kepi, the lead character's partner, and mentions that he first appears in episode 4 to battle with green gems. Suddenly, the aloof Amani speaks up, bluntly telling him that he is wrong, and that the character actually appears in episode 2. Takuya is stunned that she knows such a specific detail. Kotoko continues to rummage through his things, finding another toy called Sketchy that makes its eyes pop out when a button is pressed. She finds this hilarious and asks Takuya what the show is actually about. Takuya feels a rush of excitement because this is the exact question every fan wants to be asked, but he quickly catches himself. He worries that if he starts rambling about his hobby, the girls will think he is disgusting. Amane notices the tension and tells Kotoko that it is best if she sees the series for herself, promising to bring her the comic the next day. She claims that she only knows about it because her little sister is obsessed with it. Later, Takuya hides in the bathroom to check the episode guide on his phone. He discovers that Amani was right about the character's first appearance. He finds it hard to believe that a popular girl like her could be a fan of an obscure children's show, but the evidence is starting to pile up. After school, Takuya sees Amani turn down an invitation to karaoke from her friends. Sensing an opportunity, he follows her and tries to talk to her. Amani immediately gets defensive, telling him not to get the wrong idea, and insisting again that her sister is the only reason she knows anything about the show. Takuya apologizes for assuming things, but then he pulls out a limited edition keychain he has. Amani's cool mask slips for a moment as she gasps, recognizing it as a rare color variation that was only available with the first printing of the manga. She accidentally reveals that she tried to buy it at 3 different stores before catching herself and saying it was her sister who wanted it. Takuya offers to give it to her since he has a spare, and Amani accepts it, still maintaining the lie that it is for her sibling. Takuya thinks to himself that she is incredibly cute when she isn't being so distant. The following morning, Kotoko arrives at school with her usual high energy, greeting everyone she sees. She sits down in front of Takuya and playfully pretends to be a UFO beaming up his eraser again. Takuya realizes she forgot her own school supplies and offers to let her use his. He notes that Kotoko has been talking to him more often lately since her seat was moved, and while he appreciates the kindness, he still feels like he needs some personal space. Kotoko notices a different character on his eraser and calls it Squirrely. Takuya is shocked that she actually knows the name and asks if she watched the show. Kotoko explains that Amane lent her the manga version. Takuya loses his composure and starts geeking out, explaining how impressive the manga adaptation is for keeping the dark tone of the anime while expanding on the characters. He quickly stops and apologizes, fearing he has creeped her out, but Kotoko tells him not to rush and says she is actually listening. She tells him that he reminds her of a character named Rocket Man because they both have big round eyes and blush easily. Later, Kotoko asks if Takuya uses a social media app called Minsta. Takuya is hesitant because he uses his account to post his drawings and photos of his Glittermon collection, Kotoko ends up seeing his phone and discovers his hidden account. Takuya has a brief flashback to past trauma where people bullied him for having an account full of anime stuff, and he prepares for the worst. However, Kotoko is genuinely impressed. She tells him his drawings are good, and that she respects how devoted he is to his hobby. She then grabs his phone and takes a selfie of the two of them together, telling him he should post photos like that once in a while to show he is a serious collector who also has a life. Takuya begins to wonder if gals really can be kind to people like him. On another day, Takuya is riding the train and feeling very depressed. In the latest episode of the show, a character named Patch was killed off while protecting another character. Takuya is devastated because Patch was a complex and mysterious character who gave good advice despite being an enemy. He feels lonely because he has no one to share his grief with. Just then, he spots Amane on the train. She looks exhausted. Her eyes are red from crying, and she lets out a massive sigh. Takuya realizes immediately that she must be mourning Patch too. Two other boys on the train notice Amane and comment on how she looks even more attractive while looking sad. They then talk about a technical patch for a video game they are playing, which causes Amane to react suddenly because she thinks they are talking about the character. Takuya is now convinced that Amane is a secret otaku just like him. Back at school, the drama continues as a popular student confesses his love to Amane, but she turns him down. Takuya watches from a distance as other girls ask Amane what she spends her money on, since she doesn't seem to buy much skincare or expensive clothes. Amane almost says she saves it for Glitterman merchandise before quickly changing her answer to glittery accessories. Takuya notices a rare charm on her bag that is a replica of a magical wand from the show. He knows it was a very limited edition item and feels a surge of jealousy and admiration. Amane notices him staring and pulls him aside to give him the usual excuse about her sister forcing her to buy matching items. Takuya ignores the excuse and tells her that Patch died the day before and that he cried all night. He asks her directly if she really hates the show. Amane almost breaks, admitting she has it bad, before quickly reverting to her sister excuse. Kotoko happens to walk by and asks if they are dating because they are standing so close. Amane panics and tries to explain, but Takuya is so overwhelmed by her physical proximity that he can barely function. During class, Takuya realizes with horror that he left his math textbook at home. He knows the teacher for this period is the scariest one in the school and will be furious if he sees Takuya without his materials. He tries to hide his mistake by putting a different book on his desk. The teacher begins calling on students to read in order of the seating chart, and Takuya realizes his turn is coming up. Kotoko turns around and asks for a red pen, noticing his empty desk. Before the teacher can get to Takuya, Kotoko raises her hand and lies, telling the teacher that she is the one who forgot her textbook. The teacher tells her to share with a neighbor, and Kotoko chooses to sit with Takuya. She whispers to him that his plan to use a math book was hilarious, but would never have worked. She tells him she is covering for him as payback for all the times he lets her borrow things. Takuya is touched that she would take the blame for him. After class, Amane and Kotoko turn down more invitations to go to karaoke. Takuya reflects on how popular and beautiful they are, feeling that they live in a completely different world than an introverted otaku. He decides to focus on his own excitement for the day, the release of Glitterman blind boxes at a local shop. He rushes to the store, hoping to get a rare figure. When he arrives, he is surprised to see Amane and Kotoko already there. Amane uses her sister excuse one more time, but Kotoko just laughs and says they ran into Otaku-kun. They explain that they skipped karaoke because they didn't like the crowd and wanted to get the new toys. Takuya feels like he should leave and let them have their space, thinking that their worlds aren't compatible. However, both girls grab him before he can walk away. They tell him that they should all buy their figures together. Kotoko says she is buying one to help Amane find the one she wants, and Amane asks Takuya if he will trade with her if he gets a specific villain character. Takuya agrees, and the three of them open their boxes. Takuya gets the character he wanted. Kotoko pulls an extremely rare secret figure, and Amane gets a patch figure. They all celebrate together, and Takuya finally decides that maybe gals really can be kind to otaku after all. The atmosphere in the classroom feels lighter another day, as Kotoko brings up a specific Glittermon story that she found particularly exciting. She describes a scene involving a tough-looking character with a lot of energy, struggling to recall exactly where it happened. Takuya is unsure if she is referring to the manga or the anime, but Amane effortlessly identifies it as episode 4 of the anime. Takuya is once again floored by her specialized knowledge. Amane quickly retreats into her usual defense, insisting that she only knows because her little sister is obsessed with that particular episode. Takuya reflects on how wonderful it feels to finally have people to talk to about his passion. When Kotoko asks how many episodes the series has, Takuya explains that there are 14. Amane adds that the second Blu-ray volume is launching soon, mentioning that the first volume contains a rare episode 0 as a bonus feature. Takuya notes to himself that she is clearly a dedicated fan despite her claims. Kotoko is immediately curious about the hidden episode, and Takuya offers to lend them his copy. Kotoko takes it a step further, suggesting they go to his house after school to watch it together. This suggestion sends Takuya into a state of pure panic. He tries to argue that his house is a mess and assumes Amane wouldn't want to hang out with a boy, but Kotoko teases him about having secret things he doesn't want girls to see. Takuya nervously admits that he has a lot of fan art he has drawn, which only makes Amane more determined to go. She tells him that they are definitely going because she wants to see his drawings, claiming her sister asked her for art lessons. Before Takuya can process what is happening, Kotoko declares that the trip is officially on. Upon arriving at Takuya's apartment, Kotoko is surprised to find that his room is actually quite clean. Amane immediately asks to see his drawings, while Kotoko starts looking for his old school yearbooks. Takuya is overwhelmed by the presence of two popular girls in his private space, feeling completely out of his element as he has never invited anyone over before. Amane is stunned to see a limited edition Lord Earth prize figure in his collection, admitting she tried to win one many times without success. When Takuya tries to hand them the discs so they can watch at home, Kotoko grabs his hand and insists they watch together right now. The physical contact makes Takuya feel numb with nerves. Amane calls Kotoko's behavior harassment, but the group eventually settles in. Takuya warns them that he can be a noisy viewer, explaining that he likes to provide running commentary on the animation and direction. Amane surprises him by revealing that she goes even further, using glow sticks and yelling at the screen. As they watch the episode, the room fills with high-energy commentary. They get excited over a character named Michi and the arrival of a mysterious, beautiful girl who is a fan favorite. Takuya realizes he is having the time of his life, being allowed to be his true self without judgment. However, as the room is dark and the characters on screen face a tense moment, Amane leans in close to Takuya. He becomes intensely aware of her proximity and her pleasant scent, making his heart race so fast he loses track of the show. Kotoko notices the two of them close together and sneakily takes a blurry photo on her phone, which Amane demands she delete immediately. After the viewing, Kotoko mentions that Takuya has been posting his art on social media. Amane asks for his account name, and Takuya shyly shares that he goes by the name Otaki Ocean. He is shocked when Amane reveals that she is already one of his 50 followers. She explains that she uses a private account just for browsing, and found his work while searching for Glitterman art. Takuya is deeply touched and a bit embarrassed that she has been following him in secret. The conversation turns to another famous artist, Glitter Oji-san, whose work they both admire. Takuya observes that the way they talk about art makes it seem like they have a secret connection. He ends up giving Amane a drawing lesson on his tablet. As Amane focuses on her work, Kotoko lies down on Takuya's bed, looking a bit bored but admitting she is used to people ignoring her to talk to Amane. The girls discuss how annoying it is when guys are too obvious about their interest, and Kotoko asks Takuya which of them is more his type. To avoid the awkward question, Takuya shouts that his favorite is Sachiko, the main character of the anime. When the girls finally leave, they tell Takuya they had a great time and call him a friend. Takuya is left alone in a room that suddenly feels much larger and emptier than before. He can still smell their fragrance and starts having vivid hallucinations of the girls still being in his room, which keeps him from sleeping at all. The next day, Takuya is a nervous wreck at school. When Kotoko leaves early to run errands, Takuya finds Amane alone and decides to confront her about her social media account. He argues that if she is following him and liking his posts, she must be an otaku herself. Amane tries to claim the account belongs to her young sister, but Takuya points out that a third grader wouldn't be following a high school boy's art account. Eventually, they agree to do a live reaction chat over direct messages during the next episode of Glitterman. When the episode airs, Takuya is bombarded with messages from Amane. She drops her aloof persona entirely, sending a constant stream of excited texts. Takuya feels pressured to prove his own love for the series and spends the entire day messaging her back and forth. The following morning, Amane returns to her cool, distant self at school. Takuya worries that he might have been too aggressive with his messaging, but Amane approaches him and tells him he was great the day before. She even asks for another round of chatting. Kotoko overhears this and gets the wrong idea, thinking they are talking about something more scandalous. Amane tries to claim they were talking about the weather, but Kotoko remains suspicious. Later, Takuya is shopping at a supermarket and manages to find a rare Glitterman pillowcase in the children's section. While he is celebrating his find, he runs into Kotoko, who is there with her little brothers. She is dressed casually and is not wearing any makeup, looking completely different from her usual flashy self. She is flustered and begs Takuya to keep her normal appearance a secret. Takuya agrees, noting that while she is worried about her bare face, she doesn't seem to mind the physical contact as she leans in close to him. Her little brothers even ask if Takuya is her boyfriend, which makes him even more flustered. Back at school, Takuya tells Amane where he found the pillowcase, sending her the location via direct message. Kotoko finds out they are friends on social media and demands to be added as well. She expresses frustration because Amane usually ignores her messages but seems to respond to Takuya immediately. Amane explains that it is because Kotoko always tries to turn a simple message into a long phone call. Takuya feels a deep sense of happiness realizing that he finally has real friends. However, that night, his phone buzzes with 2 separate messages. Kotoko invites him to go see a movie over the holiday break, while Amane asks him to take her to the anime store. Takuya is left staring at his phone, realizing he has received 2 separate invitations for the same day. He briefly hopes it is an elaborate prank, but he quickly realizes neither girl would do something like that. Frustrated by the impossible situation, he desperately wishes he could split himself into 2 different people. When the day of the outing finally arrives, both girls show up fully dressed for the occasion. Kotoko quickly assesses the situation, teasingly pointing out that they are hanging out as a trio and calling Takuya incredibly lucky. Takuya is completely overwhelmed by how cute they look. Pulling Amane aside, Kotoko playfully asks if Amane wanted him all to herself. Amane firmly denies it, stating her plans do not change regardless of who tags along, and agrees to let Kotoko join. Kotoko then excitedly suggests they take turns dating him for an hour each. A flustered Takuya questions the bizarre plan, but Kotoko simply warns them not to take things too far or sneak off to a hotel, prompting both Amane and Takuya to frantically deny the possibility. Left alone, Amane apologizes for Kotoko's behavior and suggests they head to the anime store for a newly released official fan book. As they walk, Takuya silently admires her commanding aura. Suddenly, a flashy stranger approaches, aggressively flirting with Amane and mocking Takuya as her little brother. Amane coldly glares at the stranger, flatly rejecting him and walking away. Takuya follows, praising her cool demeanor, but he accidentally triggers her anger by calling her an otaku. Amane insists she is just shopping for her younger sister. Inside the store, however, she eagerly grabs 3 first edition copies, acting exactly like a hardcore otaku despite her continuous denials, much to the quiet amusement of a nearby clerk. Settling down at a cafe, Amane happily looks over her purchases. When Takuya asks about her little sister, Amane swears him to secrecy and confesses she is actually an only child. Takuya panics, assuming her sister passed away, but Amane quickly explains that the girl is simply a younger next-door neighbor who acts like her sibling. Relieved, Takuya excitedly mentions he would love to meet a real child fan of their favorite show. Amane suspiciously accuses him of trying to invite himself over, forcing a panicked Takuya to apologize for getting carried away. Kotoko eventually returns, declaring it is her turn, and takes Takuya to a nearby park bench. She explains there is no time for a movie, so she wants to show him something funny instead. She reveals a heavily edited photo of Takuya with massive lips, explaining she wants to take embarrassing pictures of him as payback for him seeing her with her younger siblings. Takuya begs her to stop framing it like a scandal. Kotoko refuses his request to take photos of her and instead forces a horrified Takuya to record a couple's dance video. She moves fluidly while he awkwardly flails beside her. Watching the playback, Kotoko laughs hysterically at his crazy moves, and Takuya begs her to keep the embarrassing video private. Later, while waiting for Amane at the cinema lobby, Takuya spots a capsule machine and excitedly praises the cheap but high-quality figures from his favorite show. Watching his passion, Kotoko asks if he is interested in actual girls. Takuya stammers that he cannot fathom romance for himself. Kotoko casually shares that she prefers spending time with family and friends too, but softly adds that she might have developed a little interest in him. Takuya is completely caught off guard and begs her to repeat herself, but Amane arrives before Kotoko can answer. Sometime later at school, the trio discusses a new anime character. Kotoko is impressed by Takuya and Amane's vast knowledge and assumes they will easily ace their upcoming midterms. Both otaku immediately slump in depression. Takuya reveals he barely scored 300 points on the last benchmark, while Kotoko casually mentions scoring over 400. Amane quietly admits she scored a miserable 175. Stunned by the massive gap between the two girls, Takuya silently notes the different varieties of gals, earning a sharp glare from Amane. 5 days before the exams, Kotoko organizes a study session in the school library. Takuya struggles to concentrate around the beautiful girls, but manages to learn from Kotoko's efficient methods. When Kotoko has to leave early to cook dinner, she strictly forbids them from getting distracted by anime. However, the exact moment she leaves, Takuya and Amane immediately abandon their books for an intense anime drawing battle, fiercely vowing not to lose to one another. Walking home after the library, Amane vows to practice her drawing skills so she can finally beat him. Then, they accidentally brush hands while reaching for a crosswalk button, leaving them both deeply embarrassed. Upon reaching her neighborhood, Amane abruptly invites Takuya inside to finish their drawing battle. Entering her room, Takuya marvels at being inside a girl's sanctuary for the first time. He admires a rare acrylic standee she won, but their moment is interrupted by Sayu, the young neighbor girl. Sayu calmly roasts Amane's anime addiction and warns the new boyfriend not to be fooled. She explains that she came over to cook dinner because Amane would otherwise just drink water to avoid cooking. Takuya kneels down, asking Sayu if she is a big fan of Glittermon. Sayu bluntly replies that she outgrew the series years ago. Takuya is shocked by how early she abandoned it. Sayu explains that she was the one who initially introduced the franchise to Amane, but while Sayu moved on to more mature hobbies like traditional board games, the older girl remains hopelessly obsessed. Sayu then turns her sharp gaze on Amane, demanding to know more about the boyfriend. Amane panics, insisting she is only interested in fictional men, but Sayu logically points out that a girl would never invite a boy over if she lacked feelings for him. A deeply embarrassed Amane orders Sayu to go cook dinner without broccoli, desperate to change the subject. She then challenges Takuya to a final drawing round, confidently declaring she will do whatever he asks if she loses. Takuya immediately demands her rare acrylic standee as his prize, offering his own prized figure in return. Takuya predictably wins, and a panicked Amane attempts to offer a dirty alternative, like putting his arm around her, just to save her merchandise. Takuya furiously rejects the offer, demanding his hard-earned prize. Sayu suddenly enters the room, calmly informing Amane that putting an arm around someone is hardly considered dirty, and adds that they should not be considering inappropriate acts with a child in the house anyway. As Takuya heads for the front door to leave, Sayu pulls him aside, earnestly asking him to treat the childish Amane well since she rarely has friends over and looked incredibly happy today. Takuya warmly agrees, hoping to play with Sayu again soon. After he leaves, Sayu confidently diagnoses Amane's feelings as love, which Amane loudly and stubbornly rejects. When the midterm grades are finally distributed, Takuya happily reveals he avoided failing thanks to Kotoko. Amane, however, admits she failed every subject and angrily accuses Takuya of secretly studying while they were supposed to be slacking off together. Kotoko slyly notes how close they seem and invites Takuya on an after-school movie date, leaving a frustrated Amane behind for mandatory makeup classes. Still in their uniforms, Kotoko and Takuya arrive at the cinema. Since their planned movie is over, Takuya nervously suggests a ridiculous B-movie about a shark fighting zombies. He worries it is a terrible date choice, but Kotoko cheerfully agrees, encouraging him to be honest about his interests. During the terrible film, Takuya feels deeply guilty until he realizes Kotoko is actually crying tears of joy because the character survived, making him realize just how sweet she really is. After the movie, they head to a lively arcade. Kotoko easily crushes Takuya in a game, celebrating her victory while Takuya desperately searches for a way to restore his pride. Kotoko explains that her brothers forced her to get good at arcade games. She then spots a specific chocolate plush toy inside a crane machine, lamenting that the claw is always too weak for her to win it. Seizing the opportunity, Takuya steps up and flawlessly wins the prize on his first try, and then wins a second one for her. Kotoko screams in excitement, highly impressed by his skill. Kotoko then drags him toward a photo booth, eager to take pictures together. After finishing their session, Takuya admits it was his very first time using one of the machines. Kotoko looks at him suspiciously, noting how naturally he posed and how much he has stopped blushing around her. She teasingly asks if he has been practicing in photo booths with Amane. Takuya frantically waves his hands, assuring her that she is the only person he has ever taken photos or videos with. Kotoko seems pleased by his panic. As Takuya looks at her hands, he points out that she is not wearing her usual nail polish. Kotoko is deeply surprised that he noticed such a small detail, explaining she simply woke up too late to apply it. Takuya admits he is also surprised by his own observation, noting that he used to be terrified of looking people in the face. He smiles, telling Kotoko that she is a very good influence on him. As they walk home, Takuya notices Kotoko is acting unusually quiet and distant. He worries he creeped her out by staring at her nails, but a heavily flushed Kotoko fiercely denies it, ordering him to forget about it and hurry home. Sometime later, Amani sits comfortably at home, watching an ad flash across her television screen. The commercial loudly proclaims that Love Phantom is currently in theaters and ranking as the #1 movie for couples. The next day at school, Amani approaches Kotoko and Takuya. She brings up their talk about going on a date the previous day and asks what movie they ended up seeing. To her utter shock, they answer they watched Zombies vs. Shark. Amani wonders out loud how a horror B-movie could possibly count as a date film. Internally, a wave of relief washes over her as she realizes it was not a traditional romantic date after all. But her relief vanishes when Kotoko adds that they also took some pictures at a photo booth. Amani's mind begins to race with anxious thoughts of them posing affectionately, but her worries are diffused when Kotoko reveals the pictures, which are completely styled around the zombie and shark theme. As they look through them, Takuya points out to Kotoko that she dropped one photo. When he glances at it, his eyes widen as he sees Kotoko posing with an unfamiliar guy. Before he can ask who it is, Kotoko swiftly makes an excuse about needing to use the restroom before darting out of the room. Takuya panics over her behavior, wondering if the man is secretly her boyfriend. Amane chimes in to clarify that Kotoko actually has an older brother. However, she admits she has never seen this particular man before, and notes he looks far too old to be her dad or a typical classmate. She voices a growing concern that Kotoko might have a sugar daddy, which immediately alarms Takuya. When Amani questions whether they should interfere, Takuya firmly states that they must, expressing how much he treasures both of them as dear friends and wants to help whenever they are in trouble. Amani nods in agreement, determined to have Kotoko's back. Just then, Kotoko returns to the classroom and apologizes for her secrecy. She explains the man in the photo is simply her oldest brother. She mentions that she has always been treated as the baby of the family, which makes the close photo look highly misleading to outsiders. Takuya lets out a massive sigh of relief. Curious, he asks how many siblings she actually has, and Kotoko reveals there are 5 of them in total. Before they can discuss it further, a classmate arrives to remind Amani they have classroom duty together. Before leaving, Amani tells Kotoko that if she ever finds herself in trouble, she should always talk to them, emphasizing how important Kotoko is to her. Kotoko thanks her warmly, reciprocating the sentiment, and thinking to herself how incredibly cool Amani is. Sometime later, the teacher stands before the class to announce that the annual ball sports tournament takes place tomorrow. He advises everyone to double-check their designated teams on the blackboard, which lists Takuya for baseball and Kotoko for ping pong. Kotoko admits she is completely terrible at ball sports, while Takuya adds that he is hopeless at sports in general. Hearing this, Amani steps up confidently, declaring that it is finally her time to shine. When Takuya assumes she is just showing off, Amani tells him he is in for a major surprise during the girls' basketball game and insists that he come watch her play. The next day, the basketball court is packed with cheering spectators as Amani completely dominates the game. The crowd mentions that people used to call her the Iron Mask because she never cracked a smile, no matter how amazing her plays were. Watching from the sidelines, Takuya assumes she must be thrilled on the inside, despite her aloof reputation. Wanting to support her, Takuya shouts out an enthusiastic cheer for her. Hearing his voice, Amani turns and flashes a brilliant smile directly at him. The surrounding students freeze in shock at the sudden sight of the Iron Mask smiling, instantly arguing over who she was actually smiling at. As the game continues, Amani focuses her mind on the match, telling herself she needs to prove her worth. She recognizes that she isn't as smart or as charming as Kotoko, so she feels a strong desire to show off her own unique strengths. She pushes herself hard, hoping that Takuya will finally notice her. After her match ends, Takuya nervously prepares for his own upcoming game. Wanting a quick distraction, he walks over to check on Kotoko's progress. He spots her struggling immensely on the ping pong court, but despite her obvious lack of talent, she refuses to give up and loudly declares that she is just getting warmed up. Takuya is moved by her relentless spirit, realizing that even though she is bad at the sport, she still gives it her absolute all. Inspired by Kotoko's determination, Takuya steps up to the batter's box for his baseball game, resolving to try his best despite his flaws. He swings hard but ultimately strikes out. Takuya sighs to himself, accepting that he still sucks at sports. To his surprise, his teammates cheer him on anyway, praising him for not giving up and taking some great swings. They assure him it is no big deal since the opposing pitcher is an actual member of the school's baseball team, telling him to just focus on having fun. Suddenly, the students notice Amane and Kotoko arriving at the field together. The boys swoon over how attractive they are. Nearby, Kotoko proudly notes to Amane that Takuya's batting form looked incredibly energetic, and Amane agrees that his hard work was fully evident. After the tournament concludes, Kotoko approaches Takuya to invite him to a post-game party, which includes the volleyball, basketball, and soccer teams. Takuya shrinks back, noting that such a gathering sounds like a massive swarm of the school's coolest kids. Amane agrees, admitting she would rather pass due to the overwhelming number of boys present. Takuya declines the invitation as well, explaining that he actually has a prior engagement to go to karaoke with his baseball teammates. He happily notes this marks the first time classmates outside of their trio have invited him to hang out. Kotoko congratulates him, thrilled to see him expanding his social circle, while Amane warns him not to blow this golden opportunity. Seizing the opportunity, Kotoko suggests that the three of them should go to karaoke together very soon. Amane is pleased by the idea, and Kotoko eagerly adds that with summer break right around the corner, they should also visit the beach and attend local festivals. As Takuya listens, he reflects on how he spent his previous summer break entirely cooped up at home, realizing how much his life is changing. When summer break officially arrives after the final day of school, the trio immediately heads out to fulfill their promise. Standing inside a karaoke room, Kotoko eagerly hands Takuya the microphone to go first. She then turns to whisper to Amane, wondering if Takuya might secretly be an amazing singer, and jokingly asking if Amane would fall for him if he is. Amane watches him, internally wondering what would happen if he suddenly belts out a beautiful love ballad. Instead, the screen lights up with the cheerful theme song of Glittery Monpets. Takuya dives into the performance with full otaku passion. As the song ends, a heavy silence fills the room. Takuya instantly freezes in panic. However, Amane breaks the silence by praising the performance, declaring that she absolutely loves that song. Kotoko joins in, calling him incredibly cool and fiery. Amane admits she wishes he had told her beforehand, so they could have sung it as a duet. After an intense session of non-stop singing, the group sits down to take a well-deserved break. Takuya smiles at Kotoko, mentioning that she looks strikingly similar to Michi, the famous idol singer from the Glitterman series. Amane agrees completely, noting she always thought the exact same thing. Takuya then excuses himself to grab some drink refills at the machine, asking Kotoko if she wants one. Kotoko thanks him and asks to have whatever he is having. Standing by the beverage dispenser, Takuya fills the cups, basking in how incredibly fun the day is. Suddenly, his thoughts halt as he looks down at the identical cups in his hands. He panics, realizing he completely forgot which drink belonged to him. As he heads back, Kotoko steps out into the hallway to welcome him back and thanks him for the drinks. When Takuya hesitantly confesses his dilemma about a potential indirect kiss, Kotoko brushes it off, stating that nobody cares about such things since they are no longer middle schoolers. Takuya yields to her logic, and they head back inside. Amane welcomes them back, eagerly asking Takuya what song he plans to perform next. Meanwhile, Kotoko sits quietly, realizing internally that the idea of an indirect kiss actually flusters her far more than she let on. As they leave the karaoke building, Amane reminds them to keep a specific day in mid-August entirely free for her planned trip. Kotoko happily agrees, but quickly chimes in to share her own invitation first, a massive seaside barbecue. She explains that her oldest brother hosts a family barbecue every year. Amane beams, noting that a beach barbecue sounds perfect for the summer season. Takuya hesitates, wondering out loud if it is appropriate for an outsider to intrude on a private family gathering. Kotoko reassures him completely, adding that her little brothers are already dying to meet him. She then suggests to Amane that she should bring Sayu along for the fun. Amane loves the idea, noting that Sayu is also eager to see Takuya again. Hearing this, Takuya happily accepts the invitation. The scene quickly shifts to the sunny coastline, where Kotoko asks a stunned Takuya what he thinks of their brand new swimsuits.